Leadership isn't just changing, it's evolving in ways we're only just beginning to imagine. And women, we're not playing this game anymore. We're the ones reshaping the entire field, building models, movements, and businesses that serve more than just a few. On the She Leads podcast, you'll hear real conversations with women who've broken through all kinds of barriers: revenue, identity, borders, and expectations. There's no sugarcoating here, just the truth, told by those who are living it. I'm Adrienne Garland, entrepreneur, strategist, educator, and creator of live experiences, gathering women leaders together for over a decade. And this is the She Leads podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. I am very excited to welcome my next guest. Her name is Emily Green, and she is the head of wealth management at Ellevest. Welcome to the She Leads podcast, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm very excited to talk to you because you lead a team that is dedicated to helping high net worth women, families, and institutions achieve financial strength and independence. And over the last couple of months at the She Leads podcast, we really have been transitioning what we're speaking about because we're super interested in helping women to really achieve the $1 million mark in their business and beyond. And Ellevest has also, I think, been on that same sort of journey. Yeah. So I first want to talk about you, Emily. So how did you come to be the head of wealth management at Ellevest?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to work in some sort of financial services. I graduated in the financial crisis, which one of those things you can't control, but don't recommend to people within there of graduating in a enormous crisis
Yeah.
and just kind of like what I'm going to do. And so I ended up moving to London for a year. When I came back, I got a job at JP Morgan. And, some things in life are very purposeful and some things are accidental. I really wanted to work in private wealth management, but everything was on hiring freeze then. I got a job working in the commercial bank with large corporations, and it was actually a great experience because I got to very early on in my career work directly with clients, which showed me that I wanted to be able to talk to people on a day-to-day basis, that I wasn't just a number cruncher. I really liked people. And the managing director I worked for happened to go to the private bank and asked me to go with him. Long story short, when I was at JP Morgan, I saw this need actually for women entrepreneurs to have financial advocates, to have people on their side, because we were managing money for the wealthiest people in the world. I live in New York. It's an enormous bank. And so we're managing money for all these people who are selling their businesses, IPOing, inherited wealth, all of this within that. And I would see all these instances when I think the most stark would be when there'd be a male and female co-founder and they go to sell or IPO. And at that point, these are people who probably spend like 18 hours a day together, but then they're building a business, maybe more.
Yeah.
And, you'd sit there and be like, all right, now here's all the things we need to structure. Here's all the things we need to think about. And he would say, oh, I already started that trust years ago and put some of my shares in it. And I, moved money to my children and all this. And she would say, what?
Oh,
And
gosh.
I see this time again. And so I really wanted to focus on helping these women entrepreneurs as they went through these amazing, but really hard transitions in their life. That brought me to Ellevest. I knew who our founder, Sally Krawcheck, was. She's a powerhouse in the financial industry. And she had started Ellevest in 2014 and launched it in 2016. It was just a robo-advisor, a digital advisor at the time. But we had a lot of wealthy women coming saying, like, what about us within there? So I met Sally and, kind of speaking of entrepreneurial journeys, I worked at this large corporation, like 250,000 people work. And I basically created a startup in a startup, also a wild experience within there. But let's take somewhere that has little resources and then find a way to give you less. But it was really fun. It was really wild. I kind of always joked to her. She handed me a MacBook and like told me to go. And so it was a really one of those things that started off just just a lot of like, what are we building? And really building
Mm,
that line of business from scratch.
yeah. Ellevest started in I do wanna give the listeners, in case they don't know, just sort of a little bit of the background of Ellevest.
Please.
So, Ellevest was started by Sally Krawcheck, and it was when you say a robo-advisor, it was women any woman that had some money to invest, they were able to invest into a fund.
Yeah.
Is that how it goes? And
So
yep, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is part of the journey as well. Like our original thesis was that we all talk about all these gaps that we have as women, and we were looking at the investment gap. And so
Mhm.
the fact that women keep 70 cents of every dollar in cash,
Mm,
that affects a high net worth woman, millions of dollars over her lifetime, the average woman, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
mm,
And so when we looked at that, it was really thinking about we all talk about all these different gaps, but really that the retirement crisis in this country was a woman's crisis. And so created a digital tool that women could go on, and we spent a lot of time with women asking them why they weren't investing. And what we started to realize is they didn't care about the gamification of investing. They cared about were they going to be able to achieve their goals. And
mm,
so we started with the average, with a woman being able to put a dollar, $10,000, $1,000 online and saying, I want to retire when I'm 70. I want to pay for my kids' college. I want to, whatever that may be. And
mhm,
it would solve for you how it would invest and it would automatically do it and then tell you, like, you need to be adding $30 a month to get to that goal or whatever it may be. And really just a digital investment advisor to get women to grow that wealth.
mm.
From there, we added on financial planning and then the wealth management business a couple of years later, which then served people who needed more tactical advice and then more mass affluent and high net worth individuals.
Great. Thank you so much for giving everybody that background. And now Ellevest in the last several months has sort of peeled off that robo advisory
Yeah, we sold
aspect.
it.
You sold it
Yeah,
and
we
you're
sold that business in April 2024, yeah.
in 2024 and you are now only focused on serving high net worth women only, correct? Or is it
Yeah,
everybody?
so yeah, we have financial planning, which I look at. You've never heard of the term Henrys, so these high earners, not yet rich,
Ah,
group within here, which is a interesting group. And those are people who need that advice to to really generate that wealth or to start a business or to buy their house or to do all these things. And so the financial planning day to day. And those people pay us on a monthly basis. And then we have our more traditional high net worth business, which is for women who have accumulated $500,000 or more for one offering and $1 million or more for the offering that we've had for the longest period of time. But really, we sold it's been a interesting journey and it's hard when you actually give up your original identity, but
yeah.
it's actually been one of those things that you realize you're doing too much.
Yeah.
I think maybe you went through this too. You're
I'm
trying to
going
sell
through
too
this. Yes.
and so we started the process about a year ago and the deal closed in April. And, we're kind of, 7, 8 months off of that now. And it really is like there's a lot of clarity going into 2026 saying, all right, now we know who we are.
Can you describe, obviously without giving away details of anybody at all, but can you describe maybe the differences that you see in the women that maybe originally started investing in Ellevest back in the day versus the women that you serve right now? What is the difference in either their outlook or, is it an education thing? I would love to just understand that a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Similarity, actually, everyone says they need more education, but no one wants to actually have more financial education because we
Yeah.
all have better things to do with our
Yeah.
day. But, it's really interesting. So, the digital business was started launched to the public in 2014 or 2016, excuse me, so 10 years ago. And so, I actually think that that original digital client is that high net worth client today. She grew up
Interesting.
within
Wow.
it.
Wow.
And so, it's just that we weren't like, the new generation is different within there, but she grows up, like, that's the path, that's the goal,
That's what you
is
want.
that you start to save and to invest and to grow, and then you get to this point
Mm.
that you really are more focused on your long-term goals, and it really is, when you're first w when you're early on your money journey, your day-to-day becomes much more focused on your budget and those types, like those types of decisions. And then it becomes a world where I like to think of like you just have like buckets that you're trying to figure out where you're putting your time and money
Yep.
into, and it becomes much more about trade-offs in life and, like, bigger trade-offs, like, well, do I wanna move to the suburb where I can have an enormous house, or do I want to stay in the city and, have that it costs XYZ? What are
Right.
the trade-offs? Do I wanna leave my we have a lot of clients where they made money and they're actually looking for a more fulfilling life at this
Mhm.
point within there. So what does that mean? Like, we
Yeah.
see that a lot, and so it's, like, redefining what, like, career transition means because 'cause they're
Mm.
looking for something different, and so it's really someone who's on the other side of that, "Who am I gonna be when I grow up?" A little bit, and it's figuring out, like, how do I make my life as fulfilling as possible?
Yeah. And I think that that's what money really is for, humans in general. But I think women are really attuned to the fact that you need money to do the things that you want to do. It's not, I mean, this is a sweeping statement. It's not necessarily money for money's sake. I mean, although that's great,
Right.
but it's like,
Yeah.
what can this buy for me? Just one other question
Yeah.
about the women, and I really love how you said it. It's sort of like what you set out to accomplish, you achieved because gave these women education, you gave them a vehicle to invest, and eureka, they are at the
Yeah.
point that they're now
Yeah.
500,000 or $1 million in assets or more. That's amazing. But the other question that I just had, just because I love to dive into this a little bit, are the majority of these women, did they sort of earn their money through working for somebody else, or sort of what's the mix between like women that are entrepreneurs that, built this wealth, and women that were working or in a professional field, uh, you know, somewhere
Yeah.
else? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually just did a client survey too, where we're just like looking at like who our clients are
Yeah.
now. And we certainly have a group of clients who, worked in corporate America and saved money every year and put money to their 401(k) and those types of things. But we have a really big group of people who I'd say are either entrepreneurs on their own right that they actually started a business, or they were, like, very early employees at some of these startups, tech
eBays and
companies,
Amazons.
things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yes, a lot of people who worked very early on, like, created some very amazing things at these places, but people who tend to think differently. Because I think that, if you're coming to a place like Ellevest, you're looking at something you want something that's different
Hmm.
than corporate America can give you within there. You're not satisfied with what the banks can give you within there because that's not how you live your life, on a day-to-day
Right.
basis, how
Hmm.
you've chosen your and so a lot of people who have chosen to do very interesting things, we actually have a lot of clients who are fund managers, like venture
Hmm.
capital fund managers within there, so investing in entrepreneurs as well.
Amazing.
So in that space that the ecosystem that kind of pulls us all together.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of self-selection. I was just really interested to hear what that sort of mix was. And now there's the great wealth transfer that's happening. So more and more women, older women primarily, I would
Yeah,
assume, are going to be managing or having access to billions and billions of dollars in
yeah,
wealth. Can you talk about that great wealth transfer and what it means for women in general?
yeah. So, depending on where you read, this is, 80, 109 to $124 trillion dollars.
Gosh, T.
This that is moving to the next generation, within here. This is the largest generational wealth transfer ever in
Mm,
history. And so a lot of people, when they talk about their great wealth transfer, talk about just that, the generational wealth transfer. But what a lot of people forget about is what you're alluding to. It is that women live longer than men.
yeah.
It is a stated fact. 6 to 8 years longer. You look at the statistics, you look at an insurance company, looking at women live longer than men. And so who is getting that money first? So everyone's focused on the millennials and like the Gen Zs and such, but it's her. It's her that's getting the money first. And we're seeing that actually at Ellevest. And so by 2030, women will control 50% of the wealth in this country.
Wow.
50%.
Wow.
Wealth, yeah. And wealth is very powerful. It's a tool. It's a tool that we have in order to make change, to do the things we want, to have the representation. And so I just want to like that as comparison to we look at a lot at the wealth gaps. And so the wealth gaps in this country today is that a white woman has 30 cents on a white man's dollar. A black woman has 1 cent
Oh,
on
God.
a white man's dollar there. That is enormous gaps in terms of the way we look at the world and how we get represented. And so you even think about politics, no matter what side of the aisle someone sits on, women give 30 cents of every political dollar to politicians within here. That matters within here.
Matters.
That shows in how you get presented by whoever your
Yeah.
congressperson or senator or those types of things are. That matters within here. That looks at, who gets funded as entrepreneurs. You look at the gaps within there. So all these types of things, you look at the gaps that exist, and there's all these funding gaps that exist from the investment gap to, the venture capital gap and how women get funded within that, the 2% that have been talked about for years. And women having this wealth gives us the opportunity to create real change
Yeah.
in the way that we look at capital in society and really ownership and where that goes next. Because we have seen that women tend to give 80% of their money back to their community in some way within here. So that changes how we really look at money and the
Mm.
relationship to money.
Hey everyone. So, for years, I've been working with Dr. Kent and sending people in my network his way. He does so much impact work. What do I mean by that? Well, he helps people create books and podcasts and things like that. He even helps with this podcast behind the scenes. Dr. Kent is my thought partner. Anyone listening knows that we all need to do what we can to get our thoughts, opinions, and voices out into the world, and how important it is for women to invest in other women and for women to hire other women. I am all about that, and you all know that. But in this case, I think Dr. Kent is an exception. He's doing something really different via this new program that he's launched called the Genius Discovery Program. So he wants to work with people like me and like you who are impact driven. Dr. Kent has an intensive program that goes for a month. He also has a 3-month program where he figures out where you're headed with your brand, your business, your speaking, and your signature story as a thought leader. I've known Dr. Kent for a long time. So believe me when I say that he has a ton of experience working with people that are looking to make an impact but might not know exactly how to approach that. So if you're interested in talking to him, you can go directly to talktokent.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at She Leads Media, or just shoot me an email over at hello@sheleadsmedia.com. This is such a fascinating conversation that I think requires a lot of discussion that we probably don't have time for today. But I'm just very curious with, you even see it with, oh my gosh, I'm thinking Mackenzie Phillips, and that is so not her name. Mackenzie, you know who's,
Bezos. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to say her actual last name.
Yeah.
But you see that she's Scott, Mackenzie Scott. Thank you so much. We're all coming off of a holiday break and our brains are not quite working yet.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Scott. So she has done a phenomenal job of contributing to many nonprofit organizations. And that is such a beautiful thing. And I think that when we think about women, that persona, if you will, of a wealthy older woman, you think foundations, you think donations.
Yeah.
And so when I hear you talk about, the great wealth transfer and the fact that, that is truly giving, not on an equal basis, the white women to black women and brown women and everything else, but it's giving women in general the ability to have power that we don't necessarily have today. Do you see that there might be a gap because women know how to donate? I would say they know how
Yeah.
to
Oh, definitely.
start
Definitely.
foundations and give. But
Yeah.
this other aspect of taking that money and truly making it work for policy change
Yeah.
and more actual societal changes. What do you think that women need to do in order to learn how to use money, not just by giving it away, but to actually make change?
Yeah, no, it's spot on because a lot of you actually will, if you talk to a lot of women who have received wealth in some way, and they're partnered. They will say, when you always discuss like, how do you deal with money with your partner? They will say, I can go to the charitable organization and write a $10,000 check without asking him, but I couldn't make a $10,000 investment without asking him within here. And so, like, why? Those are
Why?
the same, like, that's actually money out the door versus money that's meant to grow within
Yep.
here. And so, that's a very societal thing when you look at it. And so that women, give away the money, they don't actually make the investments. And there's a lot of things that need to change. 99% of the money of $69 trillion managed in this country is managed by white men.
Yeah.
And so, number one, like a woman gets the money, 80% of women the year after their husband dies leave their joint financial advisor within there. So like there's all these statistics that just show you like why like it's really stark. You're like, all right, if 80% of people leave, no, there's not product market fit there within
Yeah.
there. Like something is wrong that we
Yeah.
need to figure out. Like, you'd think you'd have some smart people sitting in there saying, this is a problem we really need to figure out because
Yes.
like this is that happen more and more. But and a lot of it is that, within here. It's a lot of this societal thing, that we believe that boys are better at math than girls. It
Yeah.
just you see that it shows up in math scores, it shows up in the way we look at women's magazines. You're taught to like not purchase something. Oh, why are you buying your coffee every week? Like I remember we wrote an article a few years ago and it was buy the effing latte. And it was demystifying this whole idea that if you stop buying your $5 latte today, you'll somehow become like worth like you'll
Rich.
be like Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
And we did the math on it, and it was just like, well, like all these things. And frankly, like to our point earlier, like money is meant to make you happy within there. And so like maybe you need your $5 latte every day. Like that's
Right.
what makes you happy. And I remember my mom, who's in her 70s, called me and was like, honestly, this article changed my life. I feel guilty every day for buying my
Oh,
latte. And like my
no.
mom has a successful career and all these things. I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is what society's telling us.
Yeah.
And so we need to really take a step back. And I always encourage women to take a step back. And especially when you get into these positions and understanding what are the money beliefs that you have about
Mhm.
yourself, about women, about all these things. Like, what is it? What were you? How did you grow up? And so, what did you see in your household? Did you grow up in a household where your mom didn't deal with any of the money? Did you grow up? Like, what did that mean to you? And so, like, what are those beliefs?
Mhm.
And how do you make those like undo that for yourself within there? And you're not going to just write it down and be like, everything's changed tomorrow. It's a process. But then, working with someone who can help you to do that because it's really important. And as I said at the beginning, these for this level of woman, for a high net worth woman, that's costing her millions of dollars over her lifetime if she's sitting in cash, if she's
Yeah.
not doing things with it.
Mm.
And I see this all the time for people. And that is costing you and stop maybe even thinking about it in terms of just like the stock market, because I think the stock market always sounds scary. But, like, what are the decisions I'm not gonna be able to do because I didn't do this within here? Like, that's a trade-off you're making within
Yeah.
that you decided not to take control of this means that you're not gonna be able to retire when you want to, or you didn't can't buy that second house, or you can't go start the business you want to, or you can't pay for your kids' college, whatever it may be, like, that's an active decision that you are making by not taking control of that.
Yeah. God, this is such a powerful conversation. With the great wealth transfer, is it going to older women that might, they are definitely more like societally programmed than some of the
Yep.
younger generation. So the majority is going to go to them is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to the millennials and Gen Z, but, I think it is interesting. Some of the things we've seen, and you're spot on. Like, I've seen this, I live in New York, very liberal, open place within here, but I've traveled the country having these conversations, and we were in a very conservative southern city, and it was really interesting because we were having this conversation, and there was one of these, like, women got really offended by this conversation, and I was a close friend of mine who had brought us down there and wanted us to kind of shake things up by having these conversations, and I asked her afterwards, like, why was she so offended by this? And, my friend said to me, you are breaking the mold of everything she believes. Like, she believes she only has wealth because of the way society has been structured. So, like, giving
Yeah.
her the power to the money is actually not a good thing to her,
Mm.
which is really interesting to
Oh,
think. On the
yeah.
flip side, one of the things I've been seeing as people have inherited money is that the generations are talking about money together. And
Mm,
so we've seen that the mom and the daughter come to Ellevest together and say, "We need help." And the daughter pushed her to do it,
love
within here,
this.
like, "This is where we should be within the." And then you joint have a conversation. Like, I have one client where it's funny, like, the mom will often be like, "I can't afford to, like, redo my kitchen, I can't." And then her daughter calls us and will say, like, "Hey, can you call my mom and tell her we can definitely afford?" Or, like, and she's older, and so, like, one of her goals was to take her family on, like, a pretty nice trip every year, and every year she's like, "Ah, I just don't think I can afford it," and her daughter will call me and be like, "Hey, she doesn't wanna pay for us to go to Mexico again. Can you, like, give her a call and tell her she can?"
Yeah.
And just, like, s the push from the younger generation who I think doesn't have they're not as scared of
Yeah.
having those conversations about it, it's not ingrained with them about that, and they're also not as afraid to, like, push their parents to say, like, "I wanna know about this," like, and we encourage a lot of our clients to do it, but, like, to call their parents, like, "What is the situation? Like, what
Yeah.
does money look like?" Which a lot of people didn't used to do, and it just, like, came in your lap one day and you were like, "I had no idea that this
Yeah.
was a situation," and I know it surprised people, but that can actually cause a lot of resentment. You're like, "Yes, I have money," but it caused a lot of resentment to never have felt prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think this is a super interesting thing too, because I think that that in the scenario that you're describing, I laugh because I can see this very much with myself and my mom. And there's the maybe pushing from the younger generation, but then the older generation also having respect for their
Yeah,
daughters who they saw truly
100%.
broke the mold. Like I know that when I graduated college and I had a job and then I wanted more, and so I went for another job and then I wanted more, and I went, and my mother was like, what are you doing, stay put. And I was like, well, why? I can make more money going here, I can learn more, I can accelerate through the organization. And I think after a certain point she's like, I'm stopping asking, you clearly know what you're doing. So I think that translates to this conversation now where the daughters are saying, come on mom, like let's talk about this, and the mom's trusting their daughters,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah, they're
think,
taking them along for it, and they're
yeah,
allowing it, yeah.
yeah, because I do think that the women that are of that certain age were, if they were not independent, and they did very much rely on their husbands to tell them like, this is the
Oh,
decision that we're
definitely.
making and here's why. So they really don't, they're not educated and they're fearful, and they have a right to be fearful because they never
Yeah,
had to deal with it. It's
yeah, and the
so
majority of
fascinating.
women yeah, the majority of women have a negative surprise after their husband's death.
Yes.
And so about money within there. And So you think about that, and that also just like, anything something's bad, it's like, if I go for a run and I twist my ankle, I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna run again," within here, and so, like, anytime you're reinforcing negative things around something, you say, "Ooh, do I really want to engage in this thing that's making me feel so bad?" And so there
Right.
sometimes is that push that's needed to say, "Hey, this is important, and you need to deal with it."
Yeah, I love that. So, does Ellevest have any sort of just like without even being a client, like, is there some information that people can get if they do find themselves, in this position where one day they know that they're going to inherit some money? Like, what would be the first steps that you would say someone should take to just really prepare themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. The So we have a lot of resources on our site. We write a lot of content. We have a ton of content just for kind of anyone kind of think, like, from very, very specific things to very broad things. I think to start to for me, we talk about this concept of wealth care a lot at Ellevest. And that really is like using money to maximize your life within
Mm,
there. And so thinking about how are you making those decisions? How are you making those trade-offs and to maximize your life instead of just focusing on like, am I going to get an 8% return from this?
mm,
And a lot of that starts with thinking about what your values are. And so if you know you're going to be in this position, I think getting really crisp on who you are and what you care about is really, really important because it's really
mm.
hard to make decisions that matter to you if you're just making a decision that your neighbor made within there. Like that's
Right.
where I see so many of these mistakes happen where it's like, it's a keeping up with the Joneses thing, or you read a rule of thumb, or all these different types of things. And like, who kind of cares what your neighbor does if that's not what makes you happy? That's not the point. We only
Yeah.
live one life. That's not the point. And so really thinking about how, like, who am I and what do I care about and how do I most want to show up in the world? And then there's little things you can do when you're going to start to be this person and thinking about, you know, how is my even spending right now aligned to how I want to live my life? And you start to have reflections on these types of things. Because again, this is not, I was doing a radio interview this morning and we were talking about these little like micro changes that you can make. And it's the beginning of the year right now. Everyone makes resolutions and it's like the same thing as going to the gym. If you're like, I'm going to go to the gym now. I didn't go once last year, but I'm going to go 7 days a week for 2 hours. Like it's not
Yeah.
going to happen within
Right.
that. And so it's the same thing with money. And so, like, how do you put actionable things in your life to actually create change? And a lot of that beforehand is just understanding who you are and then
Mm,
just understanding, like, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you do this on your business. What is your balance sheet?
right.
What are your assets? What are your debts within here? It's really simple. And so I always encourage people, especially entrepreneurs who like think like that already. It's like, what is your personal balance sheet? What does that look like? Like, make one within there
Yeah.
and start to treat it a little bit more like that. There's a lot of emotions in that, but there's a lot of emotions in your business too. And so, like, how do you actually look at that and treat it more like you're going to make business decisions in your
Right.
own life?
I love that. And you're making me think. I don't think I mentioned this. I mention it probably on every podcast, but I actually teach entrepreneurship to a lot of young women because I teach at the Tisch Center for Hospitality and Event Management at NYU. And so we have a lot of women that go through that program and they take the entrepreneurship class that I teach. And one of the things that I always, always, always say to them is, start getting comfortable with money and investing now when you're
Yeah.
19
Yeah.
years old, when you're 20 years old. Even if you take $10 and,
Yeah.
instead of just putting it in a savings account, start playing around with stuff. You have the benefit of time. So if you could give advice to, my 18, 19, 20-year-old students, men and women, but I'm focused on women, what
Yeah.
what would that advice be?
Yeah, I mean, investing early is always going to be the key within here because compound interest within that. And so a dollar you invest today is going to be more powerful than a dollar you invest 20 years from now. And a lot of it's just habits. I like to think about it, we always talk about compound interest, but starting habits, it's just like anything else in your life. And so, when I graduated from college, I just made sure that a small part of my paycheck was deducted. Of course, I did my 401k, but then a small part was deducted to go into savings and then some into investing. And so What are little things that you can do that then you can replicate larger and larger for the rest of your life that are going to really create that change? And so again, maybe it's just, a few things a month. And then one of the things that a lot of people don't do that I really do encourage people to do is have money dates with yourself.
Mm,
And not like on Friday night at 9 p.m., because if you tell yourself you're going to talk, you're just not going to do it. You're going to be
right.
like, I'm exhausted and I just want to watch the show. And so, like, put it during the school day, put it during the work day, like that. And if you have a partner, put it in a time that you're both going to show up, like that you have the accountability to that. And like 30 minutes a month max within here. And just look at what you spent. Look at where you spent it. There's so many tools that can help you do this now too. But
Yep.
look at what you have invested. Look at oh God, I've been saving, but it's all sitting in my checking account or it's all sitting in
Mm,
my savings account. I should be looking at all of that and just getting used to that, like educating yourself early on that is going to help you in 10 years, in 50 years.
yeah, right. Because it's not just sweeping it under the rug and hoping that everything's going to work out. It's actually taking control of your financial life and your
Yeah.
financial life. It is your life. It does determine, what choices you make and what you can do. So it is super
Yeah.
important. And I think the message too, it's like planting a tree. When's the best time to plant it? 20 years ago. What's the second
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
time today? Same
Yeah.
thing, I think, with this.
Exact same advice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Emily, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, learn more about Ellevest, how can they do that?
Yes. So you can always go to our site, Ellevest, Ellevest, where you can also get a lot of resources, a lot of free resources about money on there. I always encourage people like subscribe to all of our stuff on there. You'll get a lot of emails that help you learn about things. You can follow me. I share a lot of wealth insights on LinkedIn as well, Emily Green from Ellevest. And if you want to email us, you can always email me, just egreen@ellevest.com or more general, pwm@ellevest.com, and you will always get to the right place.
Amazing. Emily, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights. I really appreciated spending time with you today.
Yes, you too. It's fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, please take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review. It's not just about boosting the show, it's about amplifying the voices of women entrepreneurs who are leading with vision, building with purpose, and shaping what's next. We need more of these conversations in the world right now, don't you think? And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who matters to you, send this episode to them. If there's something on your mind about leadership, legacy, or what's next, I want to hear it. Head to sheleadsmedia.com/voice and leave a voice memo or note. Your insight might just help shape a future episode. Make sure to follow the show and come back next week for more conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Thank you so much for listening. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.